The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host and or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of the host and or Paranormal Buzz Radio and or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is prohibited. Paranormal Buzz Radio will not be held responsible for you holding your knees, crying, and rocking in a corner in a puddle of your own urine, or being beheaded by a group of children in a cornfield. In fact, if you come across a group of children in a cornfield, we promise to make fun of you as you run away screaming in terror. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Demon Folklorist. Today we're going to be talking about the demons that show up in media and how they translate on screen versus what we actually know about them from demonology. So this will be like a demon and horror episode. If you don't like that, there's the door. All right, so first we're going to start with a personal favorite, Paimon from Hereditary. This is actually a fairly accurate depiction overall, though there were some things that weren't perfectly aligned with who Paimon is, but Ari Aster really did his homework and made it as accurate as possible. He just sort of stretched it a little bit to fit his vision, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Because after all, this is fiction. This is not a documentary about Paimon. All I really ask is that directors do their research. Now, Paimon appears in the Goetia, which is European occult practice, usually appearing in the Greater and Lesser Keys of Solomon, which were grimoires. And grimoires were spell books, but they were also designed as instructions on how to summon different demons. Paimon is obedient to Lucifer, and his rank in hell is king. He rules over 200 spirits, and he's also said to rule over the 25 legions, or at least 25 legions, which is probably that 200. And he must be commanded to speak plainly because his language won't be understandable at first. Paimon also teaches science and reveals answers to questions since his knowledge includes arts and secret things. Now, he can give dignitaries and lordships, so it's not that he has nothing to do with riches whatsoever, it's just not what he's particularly known for. Paimon grants familiars and teachers, and the angel Haziel directly opposes him. In other writings, it's Raphael. He's even associated with Azazel, a fallen angel, or thereabouts. It's hard to say about Azazel, like whether he's actually a baddie or his story is all messed up. So you know what, like, don't even worry about Azazel for right now, but that's comes up in rabbinical lore. Now, Paimon from the movie Hereditary is quite a different story. This is an entity that seems to take and destroy as his cult tries to bring him what he desires. A lot of Ari Aster's research is correct, like I said, and he utilizes Paimon's like almost completely accurate actual seal that represents him in the movie, but he removed one character to fit his story. I'm not really sure though why Paimon was chosen specifically, since flipping through the demons I found at least 3 that specifically deal in riches, but they're not really well known and they don't have a seal, which is used heavily as imagery in the film. So that's probably what it was. But I think it was like the seal and not the demon that was chosen, because the seal depicts 4 bowing figures. In the movie, we have the 3 of them, which represents the sacrifices of the 3 women and the 3 generations for the ritual. We have Ellen, Annie, and Charlie. And then all of them get their heads lopped off. And Paimon's presence is also heralded with certain sounds, like trumpets, which in the movie, this is accurate. Paimon, though, isn't a god of mischief or even a god of mischief, so I really wonder why that was included in the movie. The movie's cult is devoted to seeking riches and being rewarded, but also knowledge of secret things and good familiars, also correct. In demonic narratives, it's usually only a short period of time before demons take something in return. Now, Paimon's return basically kills everyone who would have benefited from his presence, at least in the main family, being sacrificed to reap the rewards, as Annie's mom tells her in a note. Her mom's like, don't worry about the sacrifices because you'll reap all the rewards. And it's like, okay, nobody's alive right now to reap these rewards. Literally everybody, and I mean everybody in this fucking family, is dead. So tell me again who's reaping the rewards. Also, something that's really interesting is that all Payman seems to see and feel in Charlie's body is anxiety about the future, about living here. Did he really want to be here on this plane? Did he punish those who brought him? Or is he going to? Because it feels also like him being summoned is also sort of this no choice yet hereditary thing that mimics the Grahams' involvement in the plot. Now, at first, I thought this movie was going down the supernatural as a metaphor for mental illness and how it's hereditary and you don't really have a choice. No, it went the full demon route, and I deeply respect that. It was like, nope, demons. Demons are hereditary, and it's like sometimes they are. Sometimes curses are generational. Sometimes your ancestor majorly fucked up and you have to pay for it, and it sucks. I can't help but wonder, like, especially because the Grahams had such a, well, Annie specifically, there's this whole scene where she's at a support group for grief because her mother just died. And she is realizing, and I think she probably already knew this, she ended up marrying her therapist probably to deal with the grief that she was dealing with. Her father starved himself. He had psychotic depression. Her brother killed himself and accused her mother of putting people inside him. And now her mother's gone. And then her daughter dies. And it's just one thing after another, and this cult comes in and pretends they don't know her mom or anything and befriends her through Joan, who's played by Ann Dowd, who's amazing. I fucking love Ann Dowd. Any movie she is in, she just makes it 1,000 times better. Anyway, they really prey on them, and they really use her grief to establish their own ends. And if anything is truly evil, it is that. It is that idea that you would do that to another person, I think. But I just love Hereditary. Sorry. Anyway, we're going to get back to the demons. But that idea, though, also, like, knowing Annie's history, it does almost kind of mirror this experience of, oh my God, I'm a demon, so now I'm going to get summoned for some fucking bullshit. Like, that some humans want some shit from me. Like, maybe I didn't want to be back here, you know? So, like, and that's kind of like, oh, you're siding with the demon. I absolutely am not. Especially because I don't actually think Payman is a demon, at least not from the way he's described. He sounds a lot more like a djinn that was absorbed into demonology, and that people just sort of went with it, even though there is a real difference between demons and jinn. So, you know, but we've talked about this before. I don't need to go back into that. Just watch my previous episodes. The Graham family are really just pieces in a much bigger dollhouse and on a much bigger chessboard. They have no real choice. This is all a way to raise Payman in the body he wants, which is another djinn thing. Demons don't give a fuck if you are a particular gender, because demons are genderless, right? They male, female, whatever, man, they're here. They're gonna possess you. But the fact that Payman wants a specific body, a male body, that denotes he's probably jinn. And then there's just this whole, again, they're hoping he's going to bestow riches on her family, and that's why Ellen did all this, except now they can't even enjoy them since they're all dead now. And that kind of feels like a metaphor for playing with certain forces. Like, you think you're going to call this deity, this djinn, this whatever Payman is, and he's going to give you what you want. But what if he didn't? What if he fucked your life up? What if he killed you? Like, I mean, there are some things in the occult that just seem kind of dumb, I guess. Like, I don't know. There are certain things I would never call upon because of their sort of mercurial nature. They aren't always going to be grateful to be here. You know, they're not always going to be into whatever you're offering them. They're going to be like, dude, what? You know, what if they weren't what they were said to be? What if they didn't do what they said they were going to do? You know, these are the questions that I tend to think about. Demonic presences, if they are truly demonic, also disintegrate the body, but jinn don't. they are similar enough to us that when they cause sickness and all sorts of ailments while near us and inside us, but the possession can actually go on for years. There were probably times that Charlie was actually Charlie, since possession is almost always a partial state. And then there were times where Payman took over, usually seemingly confused about the world or disassociating from reality, just very disconnected and seemingly from even being human, like not responding to the cold, not wearing shoes outside, preferring the treehouse in freezing temperatures. Payman also acts very animalistic as he possesses Annie and chases down Peter in a very tense scene. Jinn are known for acting like animals and also for being shapeshifters. Her father, her brother, now her mother are gone now and the victims of the ritual. Ellen must have considered it a huge honor to essentially donate her family's bodies to the sacrifice. And Joan's character, who's the character Ann Dowd plays, who befriends Annie, often wears red. And I think this is a really accurate depiction because since she leads the cult in Ellen's death, her hands are the ones who are drenched in the Graham's blood. Many were involved, including one of Peter's friends at school that he gets high with. But Joan had really special tasks, befriending the grieving woman, giving her the tea that has an herb that traditionally weakens one's will for possession, showing her the ritual, giving her the instructions, then attempting the expulsion of Peter's soul from his body. It's like she dumped kerosene and lit the match, turning this family to ashes. And Payman does actually have a sadistic side, because when he's oppressing Peter and he sees himself in the mirror smiling, which, terrorizes poor Peter. How would you feel if you looked over at a reflective surface and you weren't smiling, but your reflection was? Terrifying. And also it looks very painful, the process. It looks like he's having a stroke at one point. Oppression in both jinn and demons is terrifying, though demons are much worse in terms of damage to the mind, body, and soul. People have been known to have lasting effects from demons, like the appearance of unnatural age or chronic pain that has no source and is unable to be cured. So the process of oppression is fairly accurate. On the outside, it looks like you're going mad. Insanity combined with terror is at the root of this loss of control, of losing one's will so that something else can take it over. And, times of intense psychological distress, it can be argued, are the best times for possession because of breakage within yourself, a severance, though it tends to be a much longer process. Usually it's this way where, it's involuntary, but sometimes the process involves a voluntary opening of oneself, and we see this during the Charlie Payman possession of Annie. She believed she was a medium. She did the ritual, which was permission, and allowed whatever was happening to happen, even if she wasn't fully aware of its takeover, until Payman had already done it. We hear animalistic growling of Payman entering Annie and then Charlie's voice, while Annie remembers nothing of this event, which is really common in possessions. And whenever she reaches severe psychological distress, like seeing her husband burned alive in front of her because of her, it's a lot. So I can see why that would happen. And that's when he's able to possess her, when her defenses are so broken down that he just pops in. And that is actually how possessions work. So again, Ari Aster, I love you so much. If I ever meet you, I'm going to be like, yeah, Hereditary was awesome from the demonology perspective. I love you, man. Also, Midsummer is one of my favorite movies ever. So, I need to see Beau is Afraid. I haven't yet, but I will. Don't worry. It's on the list. Anyway, let's talk about Pazuzu now from the Exorcist series. So William Peter Blatty drew from the ancient Middle East for his antagonist in his book, The Exorcist, that later spawned a franchise, saying it was Assyrian. It was not. So Pazuzu, who's heavily known in The Exorcist, right, is actually a Mesopotamian wind god, and was both a doer of evil, but also was believed to have helped people ward off other demons. So this was sort of an odd space for him to occupy. He was like a protective god and a demon and evil. So I don't know what his true nature was. I haven't met him, but, He was on a bunch of apotropaic amulets, which are, able to ward off other evil spirits and the evil that they do. That's what apotropaic means. And these were found around the first millennium BCE. Evil apparently was considered to be used, able to be used as a defense against evil in the ancient world. Interesting. Pazuzu has a really weird head that's rectangular with horns and really big eyebrows, ears that stick out, and a two-pronged beard, definitely like embodying that whole idea of what a demon looks like, kind of like a satyr. My dude, he's just looking weird. He's a blend of many, many animals, and one of the first to be portrayed that way. Also weird in that he just appeared fully formed with no evolution through imagery one day. Apparently he defeated all the other wind demons, which made him head wind demon in his lore. He's even seen as an ally for protection, again, which I already mentioned, but it's wildly different than how he's portrayed in the movie, of course. Seems very much like a djinn in the way he's described, but in The Exorcist, he's just pure demon. Fooling her and then getting her to trust him, tormenting a young girl. He has horrific effects on her body, foul language, her body falls apart, the works. The Exorcist is why we see a lot of the imagery we do. It was iconic in its own right, but also, sadly, a little bit satanic-y panicky. Also, it bothers me that the demon is British for some reason. Why is he British? The world may never know is in the script. Now, Pazuzu is also associated with the entity Zozo, but that's probably because of one mistaken author in 1916. So it's kind of hard to say if he is actually considered to be related. Probably not, because Zozo is something that has come through a lot of Ouija boards. I actually don't know very much about Zozo. That's the extent of my knowledge. Maybe I'll do another episode on it. But next we're going to talk about The Conjuring 2, which I have beef with, and Valak. So Valak's name is actually not spelled the way that it is in the movie. It's with a C at the end, so Valac is how it's normally spelled. And Valak is the 62nd demon of the Goetia. Nothing whatsoever to do with a nun or even a woman, since it is a two-headed boy that's often depicted wearing angel's wings. Demons can appear how they want since they're genderless, but jinn tend to choose a binary, at least as far as I know. I don't know about any non-binary jinn. It doesn't mean that they don't exist. It just means that I haven't heard of it yet, or that the lore hasn't heard of it. When Valak does appear, he rides a two-headed dragon, which kind of sounds cool, I'm not going to lie to you. He's a president in hell and holds dominion over 30 legions of the infernal. His powers include controlling serpents, delivering snakes to people. I don't know why you want a snake delivery from Valak, but okay. Find the location of hidden treasure. I could see that one. That'd be fun. Be like, hey, where's the treasure? He's like, it's right over here. Cool. Saved me from digging. I'm tired of this, Grandpa. Okay, just call Valak. He's got you. He's ruled by the angel Jahael. Very interesting to me that every demon has an angel that directly thwarts and stops them. And my guess, from everything that I know, this is just a guess, okay? But I think it might be because demons, if they were not controlled, they would have too much power in the world and they would destroy everything. And that's why they're bound by divine law. And they really can't break those rules, and that's why they have certain angels that rule over them. I was not a fan of, I liked The Conjuring 2 when it came out, and it's not a bad movie. It is actually a really good movie. It's a pretty good movie. But the real problem I have is that they brought in a really famous poltergeist story, and that one had no demonic, attachments whatsoever. So it's like, my dudes, why are you mixing genres? That was a good story to begin with. We don't need to bring random shit in. That could have been a great movie, just that it was a poltergeist. Also, I don't think the Warrens had any, involvement, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, it was just weird. That part was weird. But anyway, yeah. So, moving on. I also wasn't a fan of the first Nun movie that they did because there's a whole extended, universe with Annabelle and Valak and shit. I haven't seen the second one yet. I've heard it was pretty good, the second one, but I did enjoy that the first Nun was a really good backdrop. It had like really interesting imagery that we're actually seeing now in the First Omen, and then Immaculate. Oh my god, I loved Immaculate. Like the First Omen is a pretty good movie, but it was a little more dramatic. Yeah, it didn't really do it for me, but Immaculate was everything I wanted in a demon nun movie. It was beautiful and it was terrifying and anxious. I loved it. But the Nun, the real problem I had with it is that I sat there like, are you fucking serious? Like, there were just so many cheap jump scares, and it was a badly executed demon movie. It was just designed to scare people. There was no real story. There was no real substance to the movie. And, you know, like, just because it's a demon movie doesn't mean it can't be art, like Immaculate. I just think that in this day and age, you know, we deserve a little more beauty, a little more art. Religion, I think, is not inherently bad. I think people make it bad. And there is beauty in religion. There is beauty in Catholicism. Do I think it's a little weird sometimes? Absolutely. But it is also steeped in a ritual and it can be beautiful. Also, I do have a small comment that totally is going to piss people off. But in the First Omen, it was very clear that it's kind of like you're marrying God when you become a nun. And I'm like, you don't, from my understanding anyway, you don't marry God. You serve him. So that was weird. But that's just my take on it. I don't know. Maybe they do marry God. I just, like, why are you his... He's not Dracula. Like, he doesn't have brides. It's fucking weird. Anyway, like I said, I have some issues with Catholicism, but I also think there are things about it that are beautiful and are interesting. So, sorry, Catholics. I'm gonna be me and I'm gonna just say what I think. So anyway, now let's talk about, actually, I probably should have started with the first one, but I didn't, because Valak is an actual demon. In The Conjuring, the first one, we have Bathsheba Sherman. Now, it is heavily implied almost that she becomes a demon or that she has a demon attached to her. And I felt the need to talk about this because this is an actual thing in demonology. Not that a human could ever become a demon, because that's not real. Demons are so unlike us in ability, in everything you can imagine, even in presence, that I just don't think it's even possible for a human to transmute their existence into something like this. Whatever demons are, they are a corrosion of whatever they were before. Angel, creature, whatever. I don't know. I wasn't there when they were created. But I know that they no longer exist as what they were created for, because of how their existence seems to be against nature. That's a whole different thing. We'll get into that later at some point. Now, again, Bathsheba, not a demon, but she is presented like one. But, to be clear, demons in actual demonology can attach to human spirits. Okay? So in the movie, she was a witch that was charged for witchcraft because she sacrificed her baby to Satan after a few days of his birth, and then committed suicide in Satan's name super dramatically by hanging herself on the property from this big ol' ugly ass tree. Now, her real story is that a child did die around her and a possible needle puncture. But I do want us all to remember that infants, unfortunately, even now, die of SIDS all the time. This is also not the cleanest era in the world, but the sewing needle is suspect, but it's like it could have also been an accident. I mean, I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. It might not be, but she did have a Christian burial, and I think that's important because if they really thought she was a witch, that would not have happened, all right? This claim that the evil spirit was Bathsheba Sherman that was on the Conjuring house, the Perrin house property, the one in, is it Rhode Island? Maybe. It comes from Lorraine Warren, and there's a myriad of reasons why this is problematic. She was probably just a regular woman, and witchcraft stories proliferate, especially if you were different in any way. And apparently she had very little to do with the property and might never have stepped foot on it, at least not during like the time period of the house. Like it doesn't really make sense. There's a lot of really interesting research on that out there if you're curious. But apparently, Mrs. Arnold, who was blamed in Andrea Perron's book about the subject as being this malevolent spirit that the demon was attached to, she never stepped foot on the property either. It's a really good story, Bathsheba or Mrs. Arnold, but the problem with good stories is that they are almost purposefully inaccurate because it's juicing up the story, and it's often believed over the truth. The truth never gets in the way of a good story. Any folklorist will tell you that. Then we have Baal in the right. Now, I thought it was really funny that the word Baal just means God in Canaanite. So it may not even be a singular god, but a word for a god. So there were many Baals, right? Except now it's just thought of this singular thing. And it's like, no, that's probably a god, not even the god you're talking about. So I just thought that was funny. The cult of Baal was widespread in Canaan. When the Israelites got there, each place had its own Baal. Some of them were male and others were female, and the female ones were called Ashtaroths or Astaroths when they were, not male. Baal worship competed with the emerging Yahweh cult, which is why they were bashed so heavily in the Bible. And remember that past a certain point, anything not of God was called a demon, so that really just meant anything. Jinn, previous gods and goddesses, etc. It's why the children of Israel can't make sacrifices to the Baals. And the golden calf was probably totally a Baal thing. Baal is said to be a great demon of hell, but if he indeed was a he and not a group of deities, it was in direct competition for belief. So of course they bashed him if it is just one god. You know what I mean? We even do that with sports teams. Imagine like this god versus that, how bad the bashing gets. Baal is also apparently different, and in the Elizabethan book of Oberon, his name is rendered Baal, like Baall. He is one of the 12, and it could be Baal or it could be Baal, it's hard to say. He is one of the 12 highest-ranking servitors, which is sort of like a magical servant or a familiar almost of Orion's, king of the East. In this text, Baal can compel the love of either men or women. He also has the power to make people invisible. When he appears, he wears the form of a king. He speaks in a hoarse, raspy voice. Totally interesting little thing about the voice. I've heard a similar voice, and it wigged me out. It's so weird when you hear a voice that you're like, what the fuck was that? So, It is really important, I might add, to exorcism to actually know the demon's name, which happens in the movie. But exorcism isn't my area, so I can only comment so far. But yeah, I need to watch the movie again. From what I remember, it is pretty accurate, maybe. But I actually really like The Rite. I think it's a fun movie. Atmospheric movie. And then we have Paranormal Activity, Next of Kin. And this is where Asmodeus, who is, I would say, somewhat of a more famous demon, is described. He's described as the king of demons. And Asmodeus appears in the book of Tobit. According to this story, which actually sounds like a jinn story, I might add, Asmodeus fell in love with a woman named Sarah, who is the daughter of Raguel. I hope that's how you say her name. He wanted her all to himself, and each time she tried to marry, he killed her husbands, who were at least, this was 7 times that this happened. He was bound by the author of the book after talking to Raphael. Then that dude, who is the author, Tobias, married Sarah. So, he had a little bit, of a personal thing going on there. King Solomon also called him up, asked him what his roles were, and Asmodeus told him that he separates husband and wife. He attacks beautiful virgins who then waste away, but it is Raphael who has power over him. And again, every demon seems to have an angel correspondence. Solomon also gets information on how to put him to flight, so making him flee. It wasn't very clear. Also, he was bound with iron, which is very fey, and maybe it's the same thing with jinn, it appears to be. Maybe jinn and fey are closer than we believe, or even the same creature, just different areas. Asmodeus claims he was born via an angel's seed by a human woman, so maybe it was one of the Watchers that was his father. And he is actually a Nephilim. He is said to be formed from the fallen angel Shamdan and Nama's union. He is said to lie and often depicted with the sin of wrath. He's also said to be the superintendent of Hell's casinos, whatever that means. He's also one of the 8 sub-princes who rule over all of other demons. He's also said to be able to produce huge banquets, infer secrets about anyone, transmutation of metals, transmogrification of people and animals, and is also listed as the 32nd demon of the Goetia by the name Asmodee. He's listed as part of a 9-tiered hierarchy of evil meant to echo the 9 orders of angels, as above, so below. I watched this movie, and I honestly only really remember the one aspect I liked. I really liked the found footage Amish or Amish-like community, I don't remember, with the dark secret. Like, it was fun. But was it accurate? No. And I yelled a little bit when they did the final reveal. So according to their myth, the Norwegian village of Beskider, I don't know how to say it, suffered a massacre believed to be caused by Asmodeus. They trapped the demon inside the body of a woman because that's how that works, and the demon continues to be passed from mother to daughter in the bloodline. Naturally, there are some that I missed, on-screen demons, but I'd like to know who's your favorite on-screen demon. Let me know. I hope you enjoyed this episode and my forever bitching about demon horror movies because, as you probably know, I love horror, but this genre, it could use a little work. That's all I'm going to say. I think it could be richer, and I think it could be so much cooler than it is, and it could even be accurate. There is so much information in the world these days. But, one step at a time. One demon folklorist mission at a time. But hey, Mike Flanagan, if you are heading up the new Exorcist series, let me know, okay? Like, I can help you, or at least get my book, all right? So, next episode is going to be a Purge horror-a-thon, so join me for that in June. And I'll be doing that episode with my sister because I think she has some psychological insights into an event like the Purge. See y'all later.